Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 89. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hello.
How are we today?
Oh, we're smashing.
Smashing.
Yeah. I've not been sleeping very well though. We had this conversation briefly. I don't even think we had this conversation. I've just not been sleeping very well. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I've just been sleeping in. Been going to sleep quite early, but then sleeping in for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Well, yeah, I keep sleeping through my alarm, so I need to get a more disgusting alarm. Something.
Don't you already have the most disgusting alarm?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a sort of factory.
The Apple one.
Yeah. I have that, and I still sleep through it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I need to change it because I think I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, I think you need to change it to something, some bass boosted nonsense, just
Hook it up to the PA, because it just comes out of my iPhone speakers.
Just screaming.
Yeah, and then rotate it so that I don't get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, because it's getting into winter now. I don't know. It's starting to get I don't want to get up in the morning kind of vibes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I suppose that's part of it as well, because you're waking up and it's still dark and there's that disconnect.
Yeah.
With your brain,
the clocks are going back next weekend, or is it this weekend?
Don't know.
I guess
it's all done automatically now, but
yeah, I think it's this weekend, which means I get an extra hour in bed. So they go back, which means it gets brighter in the morning again for a bit, right?
Yeah, it means that the day's a little longer. I think it's actually darker in the morning.
Oh, is it darker in the morning?
It's darker in the morning. It's so that
I'm trying to work.
I think it's so. You should know this. You're a farmer. It's so the farmers get a bit more. It was for way back in the day when you didn't have electric lights and things like that. So you had a bit more sunlight to work with.
Yeah.
But I think. So 7 is in the morning is when the clocks go back is going to be 6. I don't know.
This is too
more
difficult
coffee.
They were talking about scrapping it. Completely.
Yeah, they were.
But kind of blows your mind a little bit because, what's your understanding? What is midday?
Midday is around 12.
Right. So midday means
12 till 1.
Yeah. Midday means 12 o'clock, and you would expect 12 o'clock to be the point at which the sun is at the highest in the sky. That's what midday means.
Mm-hmm.
But the sun is never at the highest in the sky at 12 o'clock.
No.
Because we mess about with the clocks.
Yeah. It's kind of up there somewhere. It's not there.
Yeah, you can see this actually when you look at the temperatures, because in the summertime it always gets slightly warmer after 12 because the sun's still not at its highest. But you're under this illusion that that's midday, but it's actually a lie. It's a big conspiracy.
Anyway,
so
that's the episode.
Yeah.
For today, I was just complaining about time.
So today, I'm going to talk about. This is for planning people who are planning and managing.
Yes.
Planaging. So we talk about this a lot. The importance of planning and management.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about it when it can go too far, which is often, but maybe not as much of a problem because 90% of bands always suffer from a lack of management.
Yeah, it tends to, yeah. I don't know what it is about. I'm going to say most musical people. You and Aileen and are like the only exceptions that I've met. Certainly, like when I was on the when I was doing my degree.
Yeah.
Oh man, like I felt like the most conscientious person there, and you, working with, I'm not really that conscientious at all.
You're quite conscientious for a musician.
Yes, but like as a person and like out there,
you're like
average, I guess.
Average,
low average.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the reason is because to be a musician, you need to be high in
creativity. Yeah.
Which means that you're high in openness in the big five, and you don't tend to find folk that are open and conscientiousness.
Interesting.
So the people who are the most open are the ones that gravitate towards the arts, and that's the people you deal with music and drama, and those are the people that are the least conscientious.
Yeah, they're always a nightmare to work with. Musicians are a nightmare to work with. You've heard it here first.
when the style of music is more creative and more open, you get even worse people, which is why jazz musicians are even worse. Again, they're like a whole level worse than just your average musician, like a wedding band musician, or like jazzers have a tendency to be even more or even less conscientious. Because I don't know, jazz music, even amongst musicians don't like jazz music. If you like jazz music, then you're really open to different styles of music.
I like jazz music.
Right. You're very high in openness.
Yeah.
So you
it depends.
Like it. So that's where you go with it. Mm-hmm. But we're going to talk about those people that slip through the net and can get a wee bit too over planning. So
yes.
So I've listed a couple of things I've thought of. Ignorant planning, over detailed planning, over managing a team or a band, and punishing rather than encouraging. So
yes.
We'll start with ignorant planning. So this, I've come across this quite a lot in just working with different people and people outside of music as well. People do this. So planning things the way you think it works without knowledge of how things actually work. So the example that springs to mind now, it's nothing to do with music, is weddings. Because I do a lot of weddings, so I see a lot of different things.
Yes.
Bride and groom organising a wedding. They don't have a wedding planner because they couldn't afford one or whatever. And they're organising a wedding, and they've never organised a wedding before, obviously.
No, most people that get married have never organised a wedding before.
Yeah, unless they're getting remarried. I'm talking about someone who's never done it before. And you could probably guess as well that they've probably never organised a party before. So they are really up to high dough, really picky. They don't really know the ins and outs of how this works.
Yes.
And they're planning, you should play music half an hour here, then take a 5-minute break, and then do this, and micromanage, and not realize that when you actually do the thing, things tend to work out themselves. So you get extremely stressed. There's another thing I've noticed is the over planners.
Yes.
They're really specific about things, really specific.
Yes.
And then you do it, or you ask them about it on the day. Oh, you still want this really specific thing? Oh, whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but we just spent the last,
Yes. I've encountered this in music and recording and things. Was a specific thing that comes to mind was I was doing a job, recording a bass line, and when I was communicating with them initially, they had very, very specific ideas of what they wanted me to play,
Right.
And then I felt like once I actually got into the studio to record the things, it was just anything goes.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It
weird,
happens. Yeah. And with weddings as well. It's I always find it so funny when it's more wedding planners when you start getting stressed about the wedding running late, and I don't know, like they always come up to us and they're like, "I'm really sorry, the wedding's running like 30 minutes late," and I'm like,
"Fine, chill
cool."
out.
And
Yeah.
just means I get more time to set up.
Yeah. We've had a few of them recently. Like,
Yeah.
oh, really sorry, guys, but the everything's running late right now. And we're like, and do we look concerned? Like, we're just having a chat here. Like, we don't care.
Yeah. I know it's so bizarre. I don't understand it.
Even your wedding ran a bit late, but you wouldn't have known it really. It was like
No.
It was like 20 minutes, half an hour or something.
Yeah. And I wasn't bothered by it. You know, I didn't even notice.
You were fleeing, to be fair. You were having a great time.
I was having a good time. Yeah, I was having a cracking time.
Yeah, you were getting sozzled by the end, I think.
I was very saucy by the end.
You were well oiled.
Because I was, I'd had a fair few apple and spiced rums. Highly recommend, by the way.
Sounds lovely.
And I also had my hip flask, which I'd filled up with a lot of Auchentoshan. So I was just, between the spiced rums, I was also sipping that. And before I knew it, I was just doing without thinking.
Yeah.
That was the first time I ever played with my wedding band whilst completely out of it, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well I actually managed to play. I don't recommend playing.
It was
drunk.
a great set. It was a great set. Everyone said it was a brilliant. Yeah, they wish he had played more. So
yeah,
that's not an encouragement to drink more alcohol.
Yeah,
and
no.
play,
I'm not going to do that. I hate. I'm not a fan of playing drunk at all.
No.
Depending on the situation, I might have a half pint, but even then, like I don't like drinking and playing. I don't like playing when I'm tired either.
I was having this conversation with someone at the weekend about you always get offered. Maybe the best man comes up and like, oh, you guys want a drink? Mm-hmm. You always get an offer, and our response is always, no. We're driving, we're working. This is our job.
Yeah.
No,
I don't ever drink on a job.
Like no.
Yeah.
But there's some folk that are, oh right, okay, you not have a drink. The guests, at a wedding or whatever, they're like, you want to buy you something. Like, well, do you drink in the office? Like, maybe you do. I don't know. But
I mean, I definitely knew some. I had a couple of teachers at school who were on various things.
Aye.
I had a history teacher who got caught doing lines of coke in a pub in Carlisle with the head teacher in a toilet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rock
They
and roll.
now, yeah, I know. I think they now run like a tour bus.
This wouldn't be
business.
Would this be down in Dumfries?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And there was a teacher who was an alcoholic. It's quite obvious that she'd been drinking a lot. But she was lovely. She was actually a really good teacher. But anyway.
So yeah. Ignorant planning, just getting an idea in your head of how things run, and you're wrong, and then planning your whole day around something that you don't have a complete grasp or understanding of.
Yeah.
And I think if you're in the position where you're doing something for the first time and you have to plan it, because we all have to do stuff like that, like a festival or a tour. Maybe your band's never done a tour before. You have no clue how to do a tour. Leave a lot of it up to, let's see how it goes. Like, well, let me just stick to the stuff I know, right? I know how load-ins happen. I know how to book venues because I've done that in my own hometown. I know how to book an Airbnb. Right, let me just stick to the things I know, and all the other stuff that we learn on the way it'll happen upon me, and then I'll learn from it. If you like, for example, if you're on tour, if you get stuck, make sure you've got plenty of petrol and you've got plenty of money with you, cash. And you can pretty much get yourself out of any situation.
Yeah.
Let's give yourself some contingency plan, if you're doing something like that.
Yeah, totally.
And same in the studio. Like if you've been, we need to do a recording session. Like you need to get session musicians in. You're getting in session musicians who have probably done this before. They probably know more about their instrument than you do. So give them some freedom to, do what they do
try
best.
Things out and do things. Yeah.
You wouldn't say to the plumber like, oh no, I don't think you should use that coupling. I think you should use the. Are you using that tool there? Oh, I think you'd be better with. No, you don't. You don't know what you're talking about. That's why you paid a plumber to come and fix your pipes.
Exactly.
So that's sort of ignorant planning. Over detailed planning, kind of covered a tiny little bit of that there. So covering every possible detail in a plan leads to over complexity.
Yeah.
Can lead to stifled creativity and doesn't leave room for spontaneity or for error, which is an important thing. So covering every possible detail in a plan leads to over complexity. So that's the classic spreadsheeter. The spreadsheets for spreadsheets and the plan. I did this always goes back to weddings. I don't know why. But this was a completely separate thing. But the person organising the wedding was a project manager. So it was like, I kid you not, this was like a 10-page document with all the details of the running of the event. So arrive time, setup time, dinner, speeches, and it was like at 10:37, blah blah blah. At 11:03, the ceremony.
It's so unrealistic. It's never going to happen. They used to get me to do this when I was doing my PGDE. They wanted me to class introduction, 5 seconds, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
5 minutes, this, 10 minutes. And I was just like,
just give me a limit for the whole
one
thing.
of the criticisms that I got was just like, oh, your lesson plan is far too open. It's not detailed enough. You're not planning for things that could happen, and like problems that are going to arise. And I'm like, the reason I kept it so general is because I don't know what's going to happen.
Correct. So you've left it open to...
I've left it open in case...
For error.
For error, exactly. Because you don't know, like I had contingency plans put in case something took less time than I thought it would.
Aye.
Or if something took more time, but it was just, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Project managers are bad for that.
Yep.
And teachers, I think, are bad for that.
They're just
thing.
More or less doing. It's more or less the same thing. It's the way they're getting taught to teach now.
Right. I don't really know much about teaching.
No.
I haven't had much experience doing it. I taught a little bit when I left school. Taught some drums.
Individual,
but it's
teaching individuals is totally different to teaching a class. But yeah, anyway,
So covered this a little bit. Can lead to stifled creativity. So that's not allowing people to, because you've over controlled what they're going to be playing or doing. You're not giving them enough leeway in what they can do themselves.
And some people are going to, like session musicians that you've hired in, they're going to see your, if you've done that, they're going to see your over planning. And I think some of them might be too intimidated to even, suggest, hey, can we try things my way? Because they're just people, and not because they've they lack a spine or something, because people generally want to avoid confrontation, especially in a job that's so reliant on, you know, your reputation and things like that.
Yep.
You know, so you're killing it in that creativity in that sense. You know, people are not going to be. Certainly, I try to avoid confrontation as much as possible because I don't like it. Nobody really does.
I don't like it either.
No. So, you know, you want to create an open space for people to, you know, express their ideas and, you know, their thoughts and, you know,
Yep.
things like that, and you actually end up with a much better.
Yeah. Well, it's given people a chance to. I'm honestly totally for this, giving people a chance to mess up. I think that is one of the most important things you can do in a team. Is giving them the chance to mess it up, because if that burden falls upon them, like, if I'm doing this now, oh no, and then suddenly motivation, like, I better not muck this up. You know, because if you're given a job and you're like, right, Julian, do this job. But if you mess up, don't worry about it. Someone else will sort it. You're like, I can maybe sit back a bit. But if you're like, if you mess this up, this could mean the end of your job, or you know, there's a little bit at stake here.
We will kill your family
if you get this wrong. If you get this wrong, it's not just going to be
the
wrong.
gulag you go.
Oh my God, it's not just going to go wrong for the person, you know, who's going to receive the thing that you're making. It's going to go wrong because it was your fault, and then suddenly you're like, I better knuckle down here and make sure that I'm doing everything correctly. It's a little bit of responsibility, like. In a band, for example, like, you are now in charge of the calendar, of the band's diary calendar, right?
Right.
So that's everything where the band has to meet up and do a thing. You are in charge of managing everything. So if you mess up and someone turns up to a rehearsal studio and it's not booked, you know, we're not going to go, it's okay. There's going to be people pissed off because they've taken like 3 bus rides to get to the studio or whatever. Or you booked a date when you thought everyone was free, but not everyone is free, and now everyone's pissed. You're going to be like, oh no, oh God. So with that fear in mind, it's a little bit of a motivator to be like, right, I better get this right. So instead of being like a top-down like planner, like, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? It's like, you should be, right, I want you to manage that so I don't have to think about it anymore. And if you get it wrong, it's your fault. So it's like, okay, I better get into this. And the same musically, it's, the way you work is like, one guy writes all the lyrics and all the chords and all the melodies and stuff, all the songs, and brings it in, and then they jam it and blah blah blah. That's fine. But if you're a band that's not necessarily a solo artist or whatever, it might be better and healthier to start doing more collaboration with songwriting, or if you're constantly on people's case, like, I don't want you to play that inversion, I want you to play this inversion because that's not how I envision my song, and that drum fill's totally wrong. Like, just let them breathe their own creativity into the project rather than just be like, do it this way, this way, this way. Unless you're Buddy Rich, then you can tell everyone what to do because you're Buddy Rich. I think it's worth actually listening to the bus recording.
It's tough. Like,
Google people listening, or go on YouTube and type in Buddy Rich bus, and have a listen to that, and it's just him screaming at
his band members, basically.
He's just brutal. He would have been an over planner, I would imagine. if you did not play exactly what he told you to play, you'd be out of the band. So that's a different type of fear. It's like, I better do what Buddy says or I'm out of the band. Where what it should be is like, Buddy says I've got to do this thing. Now I'm in charge of the arrangements. I better not mess this up because I'd be annoyed because it's my thing. Whereas because he was Buddy Rich, everyone wanted to be in his band because it's Buddy Rich. So he could be an authoritarian and get away with it for a long time. But if you're starting out and you're an authoritarian, no one's going to want to work with you. But because he was like super famous already, he got this sort of godlike complex. He thought himself like the greatest musician in the whole world. You tend to find that with people. I think Elton John was a little bit like that as well. Screaming and shouting at folk.
Ellen DeGeneres is certainly like that.
So I've heard, yeah.
Yeah, just like shouting at people to not look at her. Don't look at me.
Right.
Don't look at me as you give me my coffee.
Jeez.
Stuff like that, you know. And then she goes on stage and she's like, "Be kind."
Aye. So, yeah, and you touched on the error part. So leaving enough room for spontaneity and error.
Yeah. It's like, you know, take a leaf out of Bob Ross's book. There's no such thing as mistakes, just happy little accidents.
It's a perfect analogy.
And a happy little accident can sometimes be a good thing. Here's an example. So from a real life experience that just happened on Sunday, we were rehearsing, and I made a mistake in that I forgot to play. I didn't read the chart properly, and I repeated these two chords over and over again, but it sounded good. And then I mentioned it to Scott, and I was just like, "Hey, I've played this thing, which is not what you've written, but I think it sounds good." And then he was like, "All right, let's hear it." And then he was like, "Yeah, actually, that does sound pretty good." And we left it.
Right. And because Scott wasn't an overplanner, and he was like, he was open to people bringing their creativity to it or their mistakes to it. He left room for error and ended up with something better than was originally planned. Yeah, good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy little accident.
Yeah.
It's this happy little tree, happy little hill. I love Bob Ross is great. It's brilliant. My dad's been watching it a lot recently.
Really?
Yeah, on YouTube. It's just
Obsessed.
on all the time. He'll sit and watch like 5 paintings in a...
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, he watched like 3 or 4 in a row one night. It's like we're all just like, "Oh my God, Dad, change the..." Yeah. Oh dear. So, yeah, we'll get on to managing a team. So, over managing a team/band. So, set up incentives to encourage positive growth rather than tell them what to do. So, you know, examples, post this, send that, design it like this, play it like this. Instead say, here are the parameters, i.e. like timescale, resources, end goal, this is what we want to achieve. That's the idea. Go do it. And have fun, basically.
Yeah.
We need to get this done then. And here's the stuff you need to do the thing. Go do the thing.
Yeah.
It gives a lot more creative license for people to just go and do their thing.
Yeah, you're setting up just enough limitations.
Yep.
You know, I find that when it's too open, things just don't get done.
Yep.
No. Yeah, nothing gets.
So
nothing
I've been watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay recently, and he is an expert at that. An absolute expert. If you watch like Kitchen Nightmares and stuff, just any of his programs really, he is an expert at running a team, and he doesn't run it. He doesn't run it like Himmler.
No. It's really funny. There's this like people paint him as this like angry, shouty man, but he's actually very motivating.
Oh, unbelievable! If you pay enough attention to him, he's excellent at letting people find their own strengths in certain things. So he doesn't just tell everyone what to do. He doesn't want to do that. He can't be bothered with that. He's got too much to do. He would rather people be competent in their own stations. It's exactly like running a band.
Totally. And it's another thing, which maybe could be another episode. A lot of the problems that all these restaurants have, there's always they always do the same things, but one of the things that they do is they cater to too many people.
100%.
Their menus are it's like the King James Bible. It's just a big chunky boy.
Yeah. I hate that so much.
Instead of just being one side, with a couple of starters and 5 mains or something, and then some desserts, and then there's your drinks, or a separate drinks thing. There you go, done.
If there are more than 20 items on a menu, you're eating frozen food and microwave food.
Oh yeah. 100%. There's no way any of that is getting cooked fresh.
No, they can't, because the amount of stuff they have to buy to cater to that large menu, just in case someone orders something obscure, it's got to be in the freezer. They can't get it fresh, because you can't. The more things you have on your menu, the less orders you're going to get for that thing. So what clever people do, clever restaurants, is they keep the menu small so that they can get fresh produce on everything, because they can guarantee someone's going to order it, because there's only 10 things on the menu. So it's the same with the band. If you constantly over detail what each member is supposed to do, it gives them just less impetus to get it right. But if you give them, here's the thing, you go do the thing, simple. There's the one command. I need artwork. Let's see what we can do. We kind of did that with the last EP.
Yeah.
It was up to the fiddle player to just go and handle the artwork.
And be in contact with the person doing the artwork.
As a result, we've got some really cool looking artwork.
Yeah.
That none of us have really had that much of an input in really at all. It's basically just been one person.
Totally.
And it's great. Obviously, we've had wee bits of oh, what do you think of this? Oh yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
But as normal. But the last artwork we did was quite planned. I think it was a bit too planned. I think it came out okay. It could have been better, but because there was some technical difficulties with locations and stuff.
Yeah.
We were dealing with livestock as well.
We were technically, yeah.
Good old George, the good boy.
He did great.
Dog. It was a dog.
It was a dog, yeah.
Not a
human, not a child. It was a dog. I was honestly so impressed with him. I wasn't sure how long he was going to be able to sit on a stool. He just sat there. He was falling asleep by the end of it.
The goodest boy ever. Great. So yeah, leaving enough room for error. So that's the thing as well. If you watch the Gordon Ramsay stuff, he gives people your job is this. If you muck it up, you'll know all about it, because he goes through them. That's when he starts screaming at people. It's because you were tasked with this thing to do and you've done it wrong. You're a donkey. You're an idiot sandwich. I'm going to start doing that to people. What are you? Anyway,
I'm a roaster.
Punishing rather than encouraging. So,
yes. On the subject of dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So authoritarians, those who like to overplan, always prefer punishment over reward. Always the case.
In fact, I think it's easier to punish people than it is to reward somebody. I think that's the reason why.
It's a more natural tendency.
Why people... Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it must be. It's hard to... Yeah, it's hard to reward somebody.
Another thing is not added is, whose fault is this? Who's to blame?
Yes.
That type of thinking. Rather than trying to fix the problem, you spend... I know some people like this, and it drives me up the wall. Thing has occurred. Disaster. And the first thing you should say is like,
How do we fix
it? But I know people who will, in a situation like that, will stop and go, right, whose fault was this? Who did this? Blame. And it's like, there's a problem here. Can we fix it? Like, let's forget about that. That's irrelevant just now. Let's get this problem sorted and then address why it happened.
Yeah. That's I think we're all bad for that, but like certainly when something goes, as an real life example, not to do with music at all, but just like human relationships, because I'm an expert now because I'm married. Rachel and I used to be very bad for going, if something happened, it was just like, Julian, was this your fault? Or Rachel, why did you do this? And now we've just started going, oh, this thing has happened. Let's just fix it. And then maybe, and then we'll just, and then you just naturally sort of admit to fault,
Okay.
Yeah, it's much easier to, I don't know why it's the go-to to just sort of blame others instead of like working cooperatively, It's the scapegoat thing,
Yeah. So I've put here, you should be rewarding good behavior rather than punishing bad behavior. Like parents, over authoritarian parents, punish kids more often than they reward. Now, I think it's important to punish as well, because
it's a bit of both.
You need a balance between both, because you need to set the good against the bad. So like, here's what happens when you do good things, and here's what happens when you do bad things.
But you need to punish appropriately, because some punishments, like as an example from dog training, right? There's a reason people don't hit their dogs anymore, because it's abusive and horrible.
Right.
But you shouldn't. That's not a good way of training anything.
Yeah.
Because that's not what happens in the wild. That's not what wolves do. If a wolf trespasses or like crosses a line that shouldn't be crossed, they just exile them. They just like, go away, and we will accept you when we want to.
Yeah.
So it's about the appropriate, if you're going to punish a behavior, you need to punish it appropriately.
Because like in the case of a wolf or an animal, there's an element of environmental punishment. So if you make a mistake, the environment will kick your ass. Basically, I saw a video the other day of a tiger attacking a porcupine, and he knew all about that. That's punishment. It's you've got a mouthful of spines. Of spines. That's I know now not to do that again. That's a punishment. That's like an environmental, natural punishment. You get rewarded for your stupidity, or you get punished for your stupidity. So when you're taking it into the social realm, and it's a conscious being dishing out the punishment. It's not just you get rewarded, you get results on your stupidity. Like you invested in the stock market and then it crashes. Well, you shouldn't have invested too much. That's the natural order of things. Or you forgot to get a present for your wife's birthday and she wants you to sleep on the couch for the next month. That's like an act of punishment, just to let you know what happens when you mess up. So it's, a punishment is only there to set against the reward. If it's all punishment and no reward, then there is no incentive to do better.
Exactly. Like, and reward is, honestly, it's so important. Like, the reward isn't as simple as just like things going as normal, because I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, the reward is that you're being good. That's not a reward. You need to actually demonstrate to somebody that they are being, or whatever, example of a dog again. Like, a dog doesn't understand if it's being good or not unless there is a reward in place, and you actually highlight the fact that what they did there was a good thing rather than a bad thing.
Yep.
So, and it's the same with humans.
Yeah, but don't bring dog treats to the band practice.
No, don't. Unless for some reason your bass player's into that sort of thing.
Could be. Could be. So to bring this into the realm of human beings.
Of human beings, yes.
An example of a reward would be, you're in the studio or whatever and someone's played something. I really love what you did there. A compliment.
Yes.
Right? Say, like, that's really cool. That's really great. You write good songs. Good boy. It's the reward thing. Rather than just sitting there and not saying anything.
Yeah.
Let people know if you genuinely like what someone's done, or you are enjoying what someone's playing, or you like the sound of their guitar, or just let them know.
Yeah.
Because it lets them know, like, oh, this effort that I've been putting in, people are noticing, they're taking notice of it, so I'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's so simple. We're basically just big apes. We just need to be told that we're valuable. We pretty much do. Otherwise, people just get depressed. And a punishment would be, that song sucks. You're a terrible musician.
Yeah.
So, a punishment leading with reward rather than punishment. So, I think it's more important. Like 80%, 80-20 principle again.
Yes.
80% of the time you should be rewarding good behavior, and then behaviors will tend towards the good, and 20% of the time you should be punishing, just as a little reminder that exists.
But as another thing with punishing is that there needs to be, you don't hold a grudge.
Never.
Don't be. Don't bring it up all the time. That's really abusive behavior. Just like, oh, remember that time you did that thing that was really bad and it was stupid and you look like an idiot. Don't do that. Highlight it one time and then leave it alone. You know?
And the only time I think punishment should be used in a band context is when the person doesn't think they're in the wrong. So, for example, when I did a boo-boo and drove to the wrong part of Scotland by accident and set us back like 6 hours or something, or 3 hours, or whatever it was.
I mean, it's more funny now in retrospect.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious then.
It was hilarious then, maybe 5 minutes after that happened. But I knew I had messed up. But if I was like, oh, no, I'm totally in the right. You can drive across water, don't you know? Let me show you.
And that's how half of Eriska died.
We drowned in Mallaig Harbour. That I was very much aware that I was in the wrong, and I had to pay for it literally with my own money. 3 hours worth of fuel that was unnecessary to. So, like, if the person's like booking a rehearsal and they've booked it for a time that doesn't suit everybody. So, for example, we're all free at 12 o'clock. Oh, but I'm not free then. I'm free at 3 o'clock. Oh, I'll just book it for 3 o'clock. Oh, guys, I booked it for 3 o'clock. Well, we can't make it. Oh, that's not my problem. You know, that kind of behaviour where, oh no, I'm in the right. No, 3 o'clock's better. It suits me. That's fine, right? You know, and in that instance, it's like you're wrong. There's probably somewhere deep inside you know you're wrong, but you're not admitting to it. That's when it starts to get into the realm of punishment. And by punishment, I mean it's like, well, you're no longer part of. You no longer get to book the rehearsal. Basically, we need to get somebody else to do your job. or you're out of the band, depending how bad the thing is.
Yeah, we have a couple of other episodes that we've done before
Yeah,
about
dealing with
when
roasters.
to do that. But yeah.
So yeah, it's just balancing between. Was it they say you get what you reward for? If you reward for bad behavior, then you will get bad behavior.
Yeah.
If you should never like.
Yeah, you reap what you sow,
Aye,
basically.
pretty much.
It's one of those things it's just a fact.
Yeah.
So
I think the point that I should stress the most with regards to over planning is always give enough room for things to happen naturally, because you can't plan everything, because it's a chaotic world. Things happen.
Totally, and you see this all the time. Things thrive when there's a good balance of. So I'm getting into dualism now. When there's a good balance of like chaos and order happening at the same time, and you see this in like
Natural selection.
Yeah,
evolution.
well, I was even going to say like cultivation and things like that. Like when you grow something in a very sterile, fabricated, overly ordered environment, it's going to grow. But like tomatoes, for example, right? The tomatoes that you get in like supermarket that have all been grown in a greenhouse in controlled conditions, because they grow quickly and they produce blah 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 blah, but they don't taste good.
No,
let's be real, they just don't taste good, and it's because there's been no room for error and for things to sort of do their own thing. That's why I don't want to say the term organic, because it's also a bunch of nonsense, but like a lot of organic foods tend to taste better because they've just they've just capitalized on the why
it's I'm a farmer, so I'm
you're
qualified.
a farmer, you know more about this.
Because it's nothing to do with the pesticides or the fertilizers. That's just a means to an end.
Yeah,
what the thing is organic crops are allowed to fail.
Yeah,
meaning that the fruit that bears is the one that's the strongest enough to survive, and that's usually the healthiest fruit and usually tastes better.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give it lots of chemical fertilizers and you give it lots of pesticides and herbicides and all the stuff, then even the weak ones get strong. The ones that were not meant to be.
Yeah, which is funny because like Rachel and I this isn't an Aldi sponsorship, but Rachel and I started shopping at Aldi.
Okay.
And they have a series. It's their cheapest produce, which is really funny. It's called the wonky. Like, so you have like wonky potatoes and wonky peppers, and the only reason they're wonky is because they look a bit weird.
Right.
But they taste the same and sometimes better because they're just allowing the fruit to do its thing.
Yeah.
And the vegetable, the roots, to do its thing.
My great uncle Andrew from Canada had a massive apple orchard and a pumpkin farm as well. And there were some apples that he just couldn't sell because the apples were about this size. I kid you not.
Apples?
Eating apples as well. These things were the size of small footballs.
Wow.
And you can't sell that easily. So those always went to pulp to go to like apple juice and stuff like
cider
that.
Because
you couldn't sell them as eating apples because they were flipping massive. So
I'd eat an apple that size. I love apples.
Like for example, we've got a strawberry plant at the back of the house, and it doesn't get anything. It's just all it gets is sunlight and rain. And those strawberries taste better than any strawberry you can buy.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's like you go out for a walk somewhere and you just see a bramble bush. There is nothing more satisfying than just picking a bramble and just popping it in your mouth.
Yep.
And it's so tart
Yeah.
and sweet.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's great.
we've just started talking about vegetables
Keep
on
it-
a music business
keep-
podcast.
Keep it natural. Just let things progress how they're going to progress. You can plan for like how you think things are going to go.
Yeah.
Like we want to achieve this by this date. That's a goal.
Yeah, totally. You're gonna have more success if there's a little bit of planning. Going back to the vegetables, you could totally just throw a seed on the ground and just stare at it and then walk away and see what happens. But it's probably not gonna do much. You can at least dig a wee hole, put the seed in the ground, cover it up, maybe water it every once in a while, and then
Give it a chance. Yeah,
give it a chance.
There's a balance between complete and utter authoritarian and complete and utter libertarian, where it's like, I don't know, man. It's like
it's anarchy really at this point.
Anarchy or the opposite,
authoritarianism.
Yeah,
fascism really.
Yeah, so it's like a balance. Like you need a little bit of planning, and you need to leave a little bit of room for things to happen. What is it John Lennon says? Life happens when you're making other plans. Life happens as it's an interruption when you're making other plans or something like that. So you plan for something to happen, and then something comes in and puts a spanner in the works, and that's kind of like that's what life is. So yeah, that's kind of over planning in a nutshell. I didn't over plan this episode. I just kind of wanted to be free form. Well, that's actually a good point. Because we don't tend to over plan podcasts. We just have a sort of bullet point thing. I don't write a script or anything.
I didn't you could probably tell, I didn't even over plan my wedding speech. I just had bullet points.
Yeah.
Of like, I need to make sure I say these things.
Aye.
And then end it like this. And then that's it.
Your speech was my favourite speech.
Was it? Well, there you go. Who would have thought?
Yep. I enjoyed your speech the most. So there you go.
Apparently I made some people cry. I didn't mean to.
It was great. It was a natural, well thought out speech.
Yeah.
And it was as if, it gave off the illusion as if you had written it all down.
Wow.
So there you go.
I hadn't. I just had
bullet points.
A couple of bullet points.
Great. There you go.
But there you go. There's another example. Just give yourself enough parameters and then
Breathing
let
space.
things happen.
Cool. That was good. Yeah, over planning. So that was episode 89. So we're 10 away from the big 100. So our plan is at 100 we're going to take a break, I think, from the podcast.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see up to the 100, and then we'll take a break just to kind of refresh, and we'll see what we can do after that. End of season 1.
Yes.
And we'll have a rethink and maybe a rebrand and.
Yeah, totally. Because I think the thing about. It's been a bit of a weird time to do a podcast because we've had a year and a half of nothing happening musically. Well, no, things have happened, but like things have been a bit weird.
Yeah.
So we kind of need to give the music industry, the gigs, the music scene a little, generally. The band scene a little bit of time to sort of actually do things, that we can actually talk about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Maybe just giving it a little bit of time for. I mean, things have really picked up for us, busyness wise. So there's that as well.
Yeah. No, totally. It's crazy how much things have started picking up all of a sudden.
Yeah, even like right now, this is the busiest I've been since before lockdown. I mean, before coronavirus was a thing, because nobody was really booking the studio through this summer because everyone was allowed to gig. So everyone was gigging. No one was recording because they wanted to go and gig. But now that it's getting into winter, everybody wants to record. And I'm getting bookings all the time now. My diary's filling up. This is the fullest my diary has been since the beginning of 2020. So yeah, it's, I think if we'll get to episode 100, which will be around, I want to say March, I'll get us to. So we do 4 episodes a month, and is that right? Am I talking crap? I think I'm talking crap. So episode
I think it'll take us just into the new year.
It'll take us into the new year. Okay, so January.
Yeah, it's like probably end of January is going to be like the last episode, actually.
That's right enough. Yeah, because we started recording episodes in January 2020.
Yep.
But we started releasing it on April, right when lockdown happened.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Yeah. All right. I don't know. So, yeah, if you're still enjoying the podcast after 89 episodes and you haven't given us a 5-star review, shame. Shame. Yeah, all the reviews, all the comments, all the likes, all the subscribes, all the shares, send to your pals, just all the stuff, and follow us on social media and all that. And if you have any podcast ideas for the remaining 11 episodes, give us a shout. We're open to trying different stuff. Yeah, so that was a very under-planned episode about over-planning. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did.
We'll see you next week for episode 90.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.